The Aurelian Imperium was known across the spiral of stars as a proud civilization. Their cities floated among clouds and oceans of nebula mist. Their warriors were trained from birth in discipline, control, and honor. Their ships glowed like silver spears in the darkness of space. To many worlds, the Aurelians seemed perfect, strong, calm, and always prepared. But today, even they felt fear. A message had arrived from deep space. A message of warning. A message that spoke of an old enemy returning. Not an empire. Not a species. Not something that could be reasoned with. It was something ancient, mechanical, and without emotion. It was known as the Harrowing Choir. Legend said the choir had once moved through the galaxy long ago, correcting life forms that it believed were flawed. It did not speak. It did not negotiate. It simply erased civilizations that did not fit its idea of perfection. And now, for the first time in thousands of years, its signals had been detected again. The warning spread like a cold wind through the Imperium, and so, a great summit was held in the Aurelian capital city of Aertheris Prime. The city floated like a shining island above glowing violet clouds. Tall crystal spires rose high into the sky, reflecting light in every direction. Inside the Grand Council Hall, representatives from many star systems gathered. They spoke quietly, sharing fear and strategy. At the center of it all stood General Saelara Veth. Saelara was considered one of the greatest commanders the Imperium had ever produced. Her presence was calm and powerful. Her skin shimmered like pale starlight, and her eyes carried the discipline of someone who had seen many wars. She did not show fear, but she understood the weight of what was coming. She listened as the council argued. We must send the 1,000 Aurelian warriors. No, we should hide our homeworld first. The choir cannot be fought, it adapts. It learns. We need someone who can match it. Saelara raised her hand and silence fell. We must choose a strategist, she said. One who can think differently. One who can create a plan that the choir has never seen before. The council nodded. They understood. But they also assumed she would choose from among their own finest. Across the hall, standing near the edge, was a human. A single human among all the tall, elegant Aurelians. He seemed almost plain next to them. Shorter, simpler, not glowing or adorned. His name was Captain Adrian Holt. His uniform was clean but not decorative. His hair was cut short and practical. His expression was serious but alive with thought. Most Aurelians ignored him. To them, humans were emotional, unpredictable, and messy. Not impressive, not refined, but Saelara had been watching him quietly. She had read his history. She had studied the wars of Earth, the conflicts of humanity, the creativity and chaos that humans carried into every challenge, and she remembered a phrase she once heard from a human diplomat. Humans do not win because they are the strongest. They win because they refuse to stay down. The time came for her to choose. A tall council speaker turned to her. General Saelara Veth, the Imperium awaits your selection. Which of the 1,000 warriors will you appoint to lead our strategy? All eyes turned to the line of silent, elite Aurelian soldiers. They stood perfectly still like living statues. They were proud. They expected one of them to be chosen. Saelara did not look at them. She turned to Captain Holt. I choose the human. The hall exploded in shock. What? Impossible. A human? Over the 1,000? Holt blinked, stunned. He had not expected his name to be called. He stepped forward slowly, unsure if it was a mistake. Saelara's voice remained calm and steady. Yes, I choose Captain Adrian Holt of Earth. An elderly Aurelian counselor leaned forward. General, you would trust our survival to a species known for emotional decisions and unpredictable actions? Saelara met his gaze without hesitation. Yes, because unpredictable action is what the choir cannot replicate. Whispers spread like ripples across the chamber. The 1,000 warriors stood silent, their pride quietly wounded, but none of them spoke against their general. Aurelians respected authority too much for that. Holt bowed his head respectfully. If you place your trust in me, I will do everything I can to justify it. Saelara nodded. Then we begin. We do not have time to waste. The first strategy meeting took place in the Imperial War Hall, a large circular room with holographic star maps floating above the floor. The image of the galaxy rotated slowly, with glowing red lines showing the choir's projected path. Holt studied the map in silence. His brow furrowed. "This projection is not correct," he said. A warrior frowned. "Our predictions are based on centuries of data." "Yes," Holt answered, "and the choir does not work by past patterns. They learn. They adapt. They change direction when they see a defense forming. If you create a perfect wall, they find the doorway. If you seal the walls, they dig up the floor. If you close the floor, they fall from the ceiling." The Aurelian stared at him. "What are you suggesting?" Saylara asked. Holt pointed to 3 star systems positioned far apart. "We must not create one strong defense line. We must create a moving battlefield. The choir should never know where our real force is. We must appear weak in some places, strong in others, constantly changing. We must confuse it." Aurelians looked to Saylara, unsure. Saylara smiled faintly. "He is asking us to fight like humans." "Yes," Holt said. "Your warriors are trained to be perfect. That is your strength. But perfection is predictable. We need controlled chaos." Silence settled in the hall. Finally, Saylara spoke. "We will train for adaptive combat. We will learn unpredictability. We will not mirror the choir. We will confuse it." The council reluctantly agreed. Training began in the vast fields of the Aurelian military academies. Holt demonstrated drills from Earth history. Rapid formation changes, deceptive retreats, surprise counterattacks. At first, the Aurelians struggled. Their movements were too precise, too controlled. They stumbled when told to move in unstructured patterns. They hesitated when told to improvise. It went against everything they had been taught, but Holt was patient, and Saylara supported him without question. Slowly, the warriors began to adapt. They learned to trust instinct, not only procedure. They learned to fight with flexibility, not just precision. During one session, a young Aurelian soldier approached Saylara quietly. "General, why did you choose him? He is small and he looks fragile." Saylara watched Holt demonstrating a rapid, creative maneuver to avoid being pinned in battle. "Strength is not always found in muscle," she said. "Sometimes it is found in the mind that refuses to break." Weeks passed, then came the first sign, a signal from deep space, a pattern of vibrations pulsing and cold. The harrowing choir scouts had entered the outer systems. The war was beginning. Saylara and Holt stood side by side, watching the stars on the display screen. She spoke softly. "They are coming," Holt nodded. "Yes, and we will be ready." She turned to look at him. "Adrian Holt of Earth, do not fail me." He looked back with steady eyes. "I won't. You trusted me when no one else would. I will not let that trust break." Outside, the stars shimmered with distant motion. The choir was approaching, and the galaxy was about to witness something new. A war where perfection met humanity's greatest weapon. The will to fight when all hope seems lost. The first contact with the harrowing choir did not happen in a grand battlefield. It began quietly, in a small star system named Vesseron's Reach, located near the outer rim of Aurelian territory. 2 Aurelian scouting ships detected movement, cold, metallic shapes drifting through space without heat signatures, without communication, without anything that resembled life. The choir scouts moved like silent shadows. When the report reached Airtheris Prime, a chill settled over the war hall. General Saylara stood beside Captain Adrian Holt, looking at the holographic image of the approaching threat. The ships of the harrowing choir looked like long, skeletal shapes made of dark metal, almost like broken instruments or twisted towers. They gave off no signals, no emotion, no purpose, only silent intent. Holt exhaled slowly. "This is only the beginning. They are testing us, measuring our reaction." Saylara nodded. "Then we will show them something they cannot measure." The first engagement, Aurelian fleet commanders gathered to discuss tactics. Some were uncertain. Some were annoyed. Many still doubted the human among them. One warrior spoke sharply. "General, are we really to follow human strategy in our first battle? The Imperium has its own proud formations." Saylara looked at him calmly. "And the choir devours predictable patterns. Would you like to be the example that proves it?" The warrior fell silent. Holt stepped forward and tapped the star map. "We split the fleet into 3 groups. Group 1 will pretend to defend the system. Group 2 will appear weak and unorganized, drawing attention. Group 3 stays hidden behind the third moon, waiting for the choir to commit." Aurelians murmured. They were not used to pretending to be weak. Their honor valued clarity and direct confrontation. Saylara understood their hesitation. Today, honor is not in showing strength. It is in surviving. The decision was made. The Aurelian ships moved into position. Their silver hulls glowed softly against the darkness of space. The hidden Group 3 turned their lights off completely and powered down engines to avoid detection. Then the choir scouts arrived. They did not rush. They did not threaten. They simply moved, slow and silent, scanning. Group 1 fired warning shots. The choir did not react. Group 2 pretended to panic, breaking formation, drifting apart. Aurelian warriors found this extremely difficult, their training fighting against the disorder. But Holt reminded them through the communication channel, confusion is a weapon today. The choir finally responded. The scouts changed direction, not toward the stronger fleet, but toward the weak group, just as Holt predicted. They moved silently, without fear, without hesitation. The moment they committed, Saylara raised her hand. Group 3. Now. Hidden ships surged from behind the moon, engines roaring. They surrounded the choir scouts in a sudden arc of movement. The choir ships tried to change direction, but this time, they were the ones caught unprepared. Aurelian cannons fired light-like beams that cut through the silent metal constructs. The dark shapes cracked and split apart. The first victory belonged to the Imperium. A cheer rose through the fleet, but Holt did not celebrate. He watched the data scrolling on the screen and spoke quietly. They learned from this. Saylara turned toward him. What do you mean? They were scouts. They were observing. Now the choir knows we can adapt. Saylara's expression grew thoughtful, and so the real battle begins. The training of chaos, the Imperium now fully committed to Holt's training style. The 1,000 warriors, once symbols of perfect combat precision, were now forced to learn improvisation. It was difficult for them. Aurelians were raised in order, clarity, and control, but Holt and Saylara worked together to guide them. In open training fields, Holt demonstrated unpredictable movement. Instead of repeating drills, he changed instructions without warning. Switch direction. Break formation. Fake retreat, then rotate. At first, the warriors stumbled, confused and frustrated. One soldier, younger and inexperienced, finally asked Holt, "Why must we move like chaos? Why not simply be strong and direct?" Holt crouched beside him, drawing 2 lines in the dirt, one straight, one curved and jagged. The choir follows the straight path. It understands clear patterns. But humans walk the jagged path. We survive by changing, bending, using what we have. Strength is not just in muscle or weapons. Strength is in refusing to do what the enemy expects. The young soldier looked at him with quiet realization. Saylara, who had been listening, nodded. That is why I chose him. Slowly, the warriors began to understand. Their movements became fluid. Their timing became unpredictable. Where once they moved like a perfect machine, now they moved like a living storm. Clash in the nebula fields. The next battle took place in a glowing nebula, where clouds of ion dust made scanners useless. This time, the choir arrived in greater numbers. Aurelian ships appeared to scatter in confusion, some diving into nebula clouds, others drifting, some even powering down engines mid-flight. Choir ships tried to lock onto patterns, but there were no patterns. Holt guided from the command deck. Move like thought. Fast, short, unplanned. Saylara led the strike team personally. Her ship glided through the nebula, engines flickering like a heartbeat. She did not command with rigidity. She adapted to the shifting rhythm of battle, guiding her fleet like a conductor of living motion. The choir ships fired beams of precision energy, but the Aurelians were always slightly out of place, never where they were expected to be. It was like watching dancers move through fog, graceful, shifting, uncatchable. Finally, the choir ships found a pattern, too late. Saylara executed Holt's final maneuver, a sudden, coordinated but unpredictable strike from multiple angles. Light exploded across the nebula. The choir ships cracked and dissolved into drifting fragments. For the second time, the Imperium won, but again Holt did not celebrate. He looked at the battle data, his expression serious. Saylara approached him. "You saw something?" "Yes," Holt said. "The choir adapted faster this time. They are learning our unpredictability." Saylara took a slow breath. "Then we must grow even faster." Respect earned after the battle. Aurelian warriors approached Holt directly, something they had not done before. A senior warrior, tall and proud, placed a hand on Holt's shoulder. "We doubted you, human, but today we saw the truth. Your strategy saved us." Holt smiled faintly. "I am not trying to replace your ways. I'm only trying to help them survive." Scilara watched from a short distance, quiet and thoughtful. She had taken a great risk when she chose Holt. Now, that risk was beginning to reshape the Imperium, not just their tactics, but their understanding of strength. The real threat appears that night. Alarms sounded throughout Aertharis. Prime.A massive signal appeared on the long range. Sensors, not scouts, not fragments. The harrowing choir corps. Fleet had awakened. The fleet stretched across the star map like a storm of metal and cold intention. It was not rushing. It did not need to. Its movement was patient, steady, inevitable. It was coming for the Aurelian homeworld. Scilara and Holt stood side by side at the observation window, watching the stars. She spoke first, her voice quiet. "The choir believes life must be perfect. It believes imperfection must be removed." Holt's eyes narrowed. "Then we will show them a truth they have never understood." Scilara turned toward him. "And what is that truth?" Holt looked outward into the stars. "Perfection does not win wars. Hope does." The final battle was approaching, and this time failure would mean the end of an entire world. The harrowing choir moved across space like a silent storm. Its ships were dark metal shapes that did not glow, did not signal, did not falter. They advanced without emotion, without fear, without pause. It was like watching a tide of night swallow the stars behind it. The Aurelian Imperium prepared for the final defense. On Aertharis Prime, every ship, every pilot, every shield generator, and every warrior was prepared to stand. The grand city of shining crystal towers and floating platforms now carried a quiet tension in its air. Lights glowed brighter. Engines warmed. Voices spoke softly. Everyone knew this might be their last stand. General Scilara Veth stood on the command balcony of the Imperial Fleet's flagship, gazing out at the stars. Her eyes reflected both strength and burden. She had fought many wars, but never one like this. Never one against an enemy that did not understand mercy or surrender. Captain Adrian Holt stood beside her. He had slept very little in recent days. His uniform held marks of long planning hours and restless nights. He looked tired, but his eyes still burned with determination. "We have trained them well," Scilara said quietly. "Yes," Holt replied. "But the choir will not attack in one line. They will test our reactions. They will try to learn in real time. Every second we hesitate will cost us," Scilara nodded. "And that is why I chose you." Her words were simple, but Holt felt the weight of them. Not just trust, not just responsibility. Something deeper. She believed in him when no one else did. Holt looked at her with steady resolve. "We will win, not because we are stronger, but because we refuse to fall." The battle begins. Space around Aertharis Prime lit up as the choir arrived. Their ships appeared first as shadows, then shapes, then hundreds, then thousands, spreading like a net across the stars. Aurelian fleet commanders looked to Scilara. She raised her hand. "Formation, Echo 7, she commanded. The Aurelian ships moved, not into a perfect wall, not into a single line, but into a shifting, fluid form. It changed like water, flowing and reforming. Just as Holt had taught them, the choir observed, paused, calculated, then it struck. Beams of cold white energy filled space. Aurelian ships dodged, split, rejoined, moved in arcs and spirals. They did not hold position. They did not commit to one pattern. They moved like thought, fast, shifting, unpredictable. Holt watched from the tactical deck, tracking enemy movements on a holographic display. "Group 4, break direction now," he ordered. "Group 2, rotate and feint left, then collapse center. Group 7, hold, wait, now move." Scilara led the center fleet herself. Her voice carried calm and control, yet she moved with instinct and quick adjustment. Her ship's engines pulsed in bright rhythmic motion. She was directing the battlefield not as a board, but as a living dance. For a while, the Aurelians held strong, but the choir continued to adapt. Holt saw it first. The enemy ships began to shift formation to match their unpredictability. "They're learning too fast," Holt said under his breath. Scilara heard him. "We must move to the second plan." Holt nodded. Then we strike the choir's nexus core. Into the heart of the enemy, in the center of the choir fleet was a massive ship, larger than any Aurelian vessel. It did not look like a battleship. It looked like a cathedral of dark metal, full of strange patterns and silent energy. This was the nexus core, the center of the choir's coordination and intelligence. If they destroyed it, the choir's unity would break. If they failed, the Imperium would fall. Sailora and Holt formed a strike team of elite warriors, those who had mastered the adaptive combat style. There were only a few dozen among thousands, but they were enough. Their small strike ships launched, moving fast and low through the battlefield. Choir ships tried to intercept, but the strike team weaved unpredictably, bending their path in sharp, sudden curves. They reached the nexus core. The ship felt cold even from the outside, as if it absorbed light and warmth. There were no windows, no signals, no markings, only silent purpose. The strike team landed inside a docking chamber. The interior of the ship was dim and quiet. No alarms, no guards, no sound. Only mechanical hums and faint glowing symbols tracing across the walls like veins of light. One Aurelian warrior whispered, "This place feels empty." Holt answered softly, "Not empty, focused." Saelara led the way. Their footsteps echoed. Inside the heart of the ship, they found the central core, an enormous pillar of moving metal rings and shifting panels that rotated in slow, complex patterns. It was like a machine thinking with motion instead of sound. Holt approached the console. "This is where the choir processes battle calculations," he said. "They are predicting our moves in real time." Saelara looked at him. "What must we do?" Holt took a slow breath. "We need to give them something they cannot calculate." Saelara's expression softened, not with fear, but with understanding. Human decision. Holt nodded. He reached toward the control interface, but the machine responded. Panels shifted. Rings spun faster. A cold projection formed, a shape made of static and light like the echo of a voice. It did not speak words. It spoke pure intention. Perfection requires the end of imperfection. The warriors felt a shiver. Though no sound was heard, Holt stepped closer. Imperfection is life, change, emotion, hope. You cannot calculate hope. The machine responded. Hope is irrational. Hope is error. Hope causes conflict. Saelara stepped beside Holt. Hope gives choice. Choice gives meaning. The core paused. For a moment, even the machine seemed unsure. That was the opening. Holt, Saelara said quietly. I will hold the defense. You change the system. Holt looked at her sharply. You trust me that much? Saelara looked into his eyes. I chose you when the whole Imperium questioned me. I choose you now. At the final moment, Holt felt something deep inside him, gratitude, strength, something hard to define. He turned to the control system and began inputting disruption commands. Not perfect code, but chaotic patterns. Human mistakes, human creativity, human unpredictability. The machine tried to counter, but it could not follow the pattern. Because there was no pattern, there was only emotion and choice guiding the input. The choir core began to destabilize. Panels shook. Metal groaned. Lights flickered. Saelara called out, All warriors retreat to the ship. But Holt hesitated, still entering the final sequence. Saelara grasped his arm. Adrian! He finished the last input. Then they ran, the end of the choir's unity. The strike ships exploded out of the Nexus core hangar, just as the massive ship began to collapse. Rings of metal twisted inward. Energy crackled and broke apart. The entire core shattered into silent light. Across the battlefield, the choir fleet froze. Without the core, the ships no longer acted as one. They turned at odd angles. Some drifted. Some stopped moving. Some flew into each other. The Aurelians saw the chance. Saelara's voice echoed across every ship. Now, strike! The Aurelian fleet surged. Not perfectly, not cleanly, but with heart. The choir fell apart. One by one, the ships flickered and went silent. The storm had ended. After the war on Aertheris Prime, a great gathering took place in the central plaza. Thousands of Aurelians stood together, not in perfect formation but relaxed, alive with relief and pride. Holt stood beside Saylara as she addressed her people. She lifted her voice. Many believed strength came from being flawless. But today we learned strength comes from the courage to change, and from the courage to trust. She turned toward Holt, and the entire Imperium followed her gaze. I chose the human instead of 1,000 warriors, she said, her voice clear and warm, because 1,000 warriors would have followed the expected path. But he showed us a new one. Holt felt emotion rise, not pride for himself, but pride for what they achieved together. The Aurelian crowd bowed to him, not as a leader of humans, but as the ally who changed the fate of a world. Saylara looked at him with quiet meaning. You did not just save us, you helped us become more.